Death confirmed our appointment on Google Calendar. This isn't a scary story save for the implications one might draw about the nature of our reality. If you're looking for a tale about Mr. Creepy Word, best look elsewhere. However, if you've ever thought about the free will versus destiny debate, or worse, gotten your own mysterious Google Calendar invite like me, you'll want to keep reading. Introductions first. My name is Charles Thackeray, and I'm a writer. Well, to be 100% honest, I work at a pizza place and only really write as a hobby. I doubt I'll ever get published. Sorry, please forgive my little tangents. I've had a rough couple of weeks. 2 of my friends and a woman I could have loved have died. I'm still trying to sort out my thoughts as I write this. I just had to share this with someone, and I suppose this was the best place. So, my story began with an email some Monday morning weeks ago. It read, "Hey Charles Thackeray, Google Calendar adds events from Gmail, like reservations for flights and restaurants, to your calendar automatically. The following event has just been added from Gmail to your calendar. Appointment by Cherry Village by Hilton Hotel Grand Key, Key West, on Sunday, August 19th, 2074. View," this was a link. "If you prefer, you can turn this feature off in Google Calendar settings. Learn more about events from Gmail on your calendar. In the future, you will not get further emails when events are added. Best, the calendar team." I laughed when I skimmed the message. Apparently, I had a reservation at the Hilton for a few days after my 90th or so birthday. I chuckled at the idea of myself as some little old man with a copy of a 60-year-old email trying to demand a room from a hapless desk clerk. Actually, this would be in 2074, so probably some sort of hapless robo-desk clerk that I didn't understand, because I would be too old to work these newfangled androids. Come to think of it, I haven't laughed since then. That's a depressing thought. Clearly, this was some sort of viral marketing gimmick or a weird computer glitch. I deduced that Hilton and Google came up with some kind of deal. Hilton would send out emails and Google would allow them to trigger calendar invites. Obviously, with the date being set so far in the future, this would be declared an unintentional mistake, and they would issue some kind of apology everyone would forget about. Now, all this seems pointless until you realize the whole idea was to put Hilton hotels in your brain, so you would think about it the next time you would need to get a reservation. A clever idea, totally wrong as I would later discover, but viral marketing brilliance. Later at work, while stocking the cooler, I recalled the email. I decided to tell my buddy Jeremy about it, including my theory about the viral marketing bit. I remember right after I finished my explanation, Jeremy gave me a sort of odd look. I remember his bushy white mustache perking into a long, thin M as he raised an eyebrow with a thin frown. "You know, I got one of them too. Though mine wasn't for Hilton." "Oh, well, Google probably cut the same deal with a few different companies. What was yours?" "My favorite bar, and it was for tomorrow night, when I usually go out drinking." Keep in mind Jeremy had Tuesdays off, so drinking night on a Monday wasn't unusual. And these would be the last words he would ever speak to me. Again, depressing thought. A major company like the Hilton Hotels could afford my proposed viral campaign, but a local bar? Not even a major chain, just a local tavern. I couldn't see them making a deal with Google. I supposed it really was some kind of glitch. Jeremy probably mentioned a time and date for drinking night in an email, and the Google Calendar glitch added it. I had the next few days off and I came back on Thursday. I kinda remember something feeling wrong when I got in. I checked the schedule, it was me and Jeremy. I know he hated making dough, so I set to the task. About an hour later, when Jeremy would have showed up, Jake, my boss, walked in. "Hey, Oh, howdy, Jake. I thought you had the day off." "Not going to be much to do around here with 3 of us." I went back to rolling dough and realized after a few seconds the boss hadn't returned my greeting. I turned to look back at him and noticed the sadness in his eyes. Jeremy was gone, cardiac arrest at his favorite bar, and I can only assure you I'm not making this next part up. He died leaning against the jukebox, as the Joe Diffie tune, "Prop Me Up Beside the Jukebox If I Die," was playing. Everyone thought he was faking it. He died in a room full of his friends, at least 3 of which were CPR certified. Seems death has a sense of humor. At first I didn't even think about the calendar thing. It wasn't until I was telling my World of Warcraft guildies on Discord about the email I got. I remembered Jeremy got one too, and it matched the time and location of his death. An odd coincidence, I thought. Then the idea popped in my head. Death is setting up appointments on Google Calendar. That would be a great idea for a no-sleep story. Sorry, it gets a little meta here. My first draft of this story was a work of fiction. I wish it had stayed that way. I had a few qualms about writing something inspired by a real-life death. That's an odd thing to write. But I figured it would be fine if I left Jeremy out of it. Of course, that wasn't meant to be. When I told all of this to my friends on Discord, Vin, another guy that works at the same place I do, swore suddenly. He got a calendar email just like Jeremy. It was for a few days from then, at a street near his home, one he rarely traveled, but knew where it was. Now, I'm not a religious man. I don't believe in the supernatural, but I have had experiences that cannot yet be explained by science. Namely, from time to time, I'll know things, usually in the form of some sense of immediate danger. I call it voice. It's not really a voice, per se. More like a strong feeling in my head of like when you remember something you've spent an hour trying to recall. Like who played the bandit in Smokey the Bandit. Voice has saved lives on more than one occasion. The big one was when my cousin tried to commit suicide. I sensed the exact moment it was happening from several states away, without any possible other means of knowing. This was before smartphones and social media, and I called everyone I could get a hold of to check on him. His mother arrived just in time to save him. So, when Voice told me I needed to pay attention, I needed to take the threat to Vin seriously, that I needed to do something, I listened. I told Vin to take every possible precaution that day of the appointment. He was a little freaked out. He was a friend of Jeremy too, so he was willing to play it safe. He just wasn't sure what to do. We discussed it and decided his best course of action would be to avoid the address mentioned in the email at all cost, and to stay with someone for the entire day just in case. He called another friend of his and got the okay to stay at his place that day. I would have been there myself, but I was working. Burt Reynolds, by the way. He was the bandit. That feeling in your head, that sort of thick feeling, just as you read the name, and had that, oh, moment. That's what Voice is, but stronger. I'm sure you already know the next part. Vin died at his appointed location on that date. Vin was at his friend's house as planned. They had just stepped outside to let the dog out when a drunk driver hopped the curb and slammed into him. He was pronounced dead en route to the hospital just as they passed the location mentioned on the calendar. This one really got to me. It only happened because I tried to prevent it. If I hadn't convinced him to take action, he would have been at home in his room, safe. Or maybe it would have happened somehow regardless. Honestly, this brings up the whole fate versus free will debate that I mentioned earlier. Was Voice wrong? Or was the intent of Voice to bring about that outcome? And yes, I realize debating the will of my own apparently precognitive abilities is crazy. Like, kind of double crazy, really. I think I can know the future and am wondering how it works with the concept of fate. I need to get out of the house. I examined my own email calendar thing. By now I was convinced it was legit. One time was just a random event, but twice it had to be something. When I clicked the link as noted above and began looking more closely, I realized something. This wasn't my personal calendar, it was a group calendar for everyone that worked at the pizza place. There were appointment days for everyone that worked there. I figured out this part of an old experiment to use Google Calendar for scheduling, but it didn't work out. I searched for the next upcoming scheduled event. This was my chance. I would do things right this time. I would take whomever was on the list next, get them into a car, and drive as far away from the location of the appointment as possible. I could succeed. I could prove to myself that free will ruled our actions, not the unseen hand of unknowable forces. I didn't care about the cost, even if I had to quit my job, as there would be a life at stake. I was so determined to make things right, I had so many plans. I was so ready. And then I saw the name of the next person on the list. There's a real punch-in-the-gut feeling that goes with knowing you've failed something before you've even got the chance to try. Like picture a baseball bat covered in nails, on fire, swung by Bigfoot right into your stomach. That's what it was like. The next death was in a few days, and it was Angela at St. Mary's Hospital, the day before our usual weekly visit. The saddest moment I ever had was my 30th birthday. I realized that day I was older than Angela would ever be. Untreatable cancer. Diagnosed at 28. They gave her a year to live. She got about 11 months and 20 days, so they were close. I loved Angela. She was everything that was good and wonderful in the world. We could have had so much. The kids, the dog, the house in the suburbs, all of it, until we found out she was going to die. We drifted apart after that. No sense in trying to make a life with someone that isn't going to live. We both knew it. Neither of us had the heart to speak of it. We just knew. I called her as soon as I saw the appointment. She already knew about it. She asked if I could be with her that day. I said yes, of course. The day itself was great, actually. We talked, we gamed, we fantasized about the life we would have had. Named our imaginary dog and kids. I can't bear to write about it. I'm tearing up as is. I just focused on doing everything she wanted and tried to ignore the ticking clock. 11:59 p.m. That's when I saw death. Or maybe I hallucinated. I don't know. Angela already had started to fade at 11:40 p.m. The doctors and nurses did what they could, but they pronounced her dead at 11:59. I know the seconds because I was counting them. It was right as the doctor said, "She's gone." Time froze. He, she, the personified abstract concept was there. Death was there by her side. You ever see a movie with death as a character in it? Black cloak, really big scythe, all shadowy? Looked just like that. He waved a scythe over Angela's body and some sort of energy, her soul I suppose, flowed out of it like a mist and disappeared. Then Death looked at me. Not like a hostile, "you're next" look. More of a, "go ahead and say what you need to" look. I sat there stunned for a moment, then finally said, "Is that part about playing chess true? Can I challenge you for her soul and get her more time? Maybe cure the cancer?" It was a long shot, but why not at least ask? Death shook his head, then pulled something from a pocket on his cloak. In his skeleton hand, he held what looked to be an old beaten-up iPhone. He tapped something into it, then my phone buzzed. "Sorry, that's just cartoons." A message without a sender, though I could guess who sent it. "Oh, all right," I sighed. That's when I noted the time. 11:59:59. You gave her every second you could. My phone beeped again. All I could do. "Thank you for that." Yeah, I told him that, and I meant it. Angela would have said it. Death spent a few moments typing something. He actually had to lean the scythe against his shoulder to use both hands. YW. She wanted you to be here for her last day. I meant to send invites to you and her, not everyone at the pizza place. I haven't quite learned Google Calendars yet. Easier to carry than scrolls, at least. "So that's what happened," I exclaimed. "So, could I have done anything to help my friends? I mean, we have free will, right?" Crikey, there are so many things I need to ask you. I started asking every question I could think of, but Death shook his head again and typed out one last response before time unfroze and he was gone. I don't set up the appointments. I just show up when I'm supposed to. And that's my story. I suppose I do feel better having shared it with someone. I feel like I should have some grand epic ending, but none comes to mind. So I guess I'll end with this. Live life as much as you can, because you'll never know when your appointment is. Well, unless you happen to get an email about it. By the way, Cherry Village is a chain of retirement homes. I guess the place I'm going to die hasn't been built yet.